This is a 1970 Gibson J-200 and it has problems. The first and biggest issue that this guitar has is the fact that it needs a neck reset. And what I mean by that is that the neck angle itself over the course of the last 50 years has slightly moved and it no longer is at the right angle. So we're gonna have to take it off and put it back on again. There it is. The next major issue with this guitar is the fact that this bridge is cracked right down the middle, and it's also been shaved down at least 1 or 2 times in its lifetime, and it's way too thin. So I'm gonna have to take it off and make a new one. And the third major thing that I need to fix on this guitar is the frets. The customer actually originally brought it into me because he wanted me to do a new fret job on it. So we're gonna be pulling all of these frets off and replacing them with stainless steel frets. These 3 major issues are making this guitar not play very good and, in my opinion, not sound very good. So what we're gonna do is repair all of those things and then put it all back together and then show you guys how much better the guitar will sound and play afterwards. In order to remove the neck, I first need to unglue the fingerboard extension from the soundboard. I'll do this using my old LMI digital heat blanket controller. This way, I can be sure that I only heat up the part of the guitar that I want and nothing else. I'm using a small radius block and a clamp to hold it in place, and then I set the temperature to 250 degrees Fahrenheit and let it sit for about an hour. I find that using a lower temperature for a longer period of time is the best way to do this, as it prevents damage to the wood and usually does a better job of softening the glue. Once I felt that everything was warm enough, I very carefully slid my bridge removal spatula under the fretboard and then slowly worked it up toward the neck until it was completely separated from the soundboard. With that out of the way, I can now get this bridge removed from the soundboard as well. So I just need to repeat the same process that I used to remove the fingerboard extension, but this time I'm going to use an old 1-2-3 block and that radius block to weigh down the heat blanket onto the bridge. This time around, I'll let the heat sit on the bridge for about 2 hours before attempting to remove it. I've learned over the years that it's best to just let the heat sit on the guitar for as long as possible to soften up that glue. Doing this makes it a lot easier to slide the spatula under the bridge without having to wrestle with it too much. Every time I try to rush the process, I almost always end up causing damage to the soundboard, which in the end just creates more work for myself. In this case, the bridge popped off on the first try and not a single piece of wood fibers came off with it, so I'd call that a win. These old Gibsons use a classic dovetail joint to attach the neck, so I'll have to get some heat down inside of that joint in order to soften up the glue. In order to do that, I have to carefully remove the 15th fret from the fretboard using my Stumac fret removal pliers. At that point, I can then drill 2 small holes into that fret slot so that I can insert a heating probe down into the joint. This is actually a tool that's designed for cutting styrofoam, but it's been adopted by luthiers in recent years as a great way of getting heat down into the neck joint without having to use steam like we did back in the old days. While I let the neck heat up, I can then attach this neck removal jig to the guitar, which is going to apply a crap ton of pressure to the back of the neck and help me pop that neck out of its joint. The thing about removing necks from guitars is that you have to be extremely patient. I let that heating probe sit for about 4 hours on my first attempt and then tightened the screws on the removal jig, but there was 0 movement on the joint, so I turned off the heater and then called it a day. The next day, I turned on the heater first thing in the morning and then had another go at it around lunchtime. Starting to come off. There it is!
You got that on film, right?
I did.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah. Alright. With the neck off of the body, I can now remove all of the frets from the fretboard using the same method that I used to remove that 15th fret. Now I normally heat the frets in order to make it easier for them to come out, as well as to help prevent chip outs from happening on the fretboard, but I found that they all came out really easily without heat, so this step only ended up taking me about a minute to complete. These old tuning machines have seen better days, so I went ahead and removed them now because I'm going to be replacing them here in a bit with new ones. With those off, I can now put the neck into my vise so that I can get that fretboard leveled back out. I'll do this using this tool that you see right here. It's an aluminum sanding beam that has a curve cut into it that matches the radius on the fretboard. On these old Gibsons, they use a 10-inch radius, so that's what I'm using here. I start out using an 80 grit sandpaper because this fretboard is pretty worn out and I need to remove a good bit of material to get everything back to level. Okay, with some sanding on the radius block on this fingerboard, what I have revealed is that I have a low spot here at the 2nd fret. apparently the owner of this guitar likes to play the second fret a lot. So what I need to do is actually build this up with either some epoxy or some super glue so that I can fill in these low spots and get everything nice and even again. It will end up being a slightly different color than the rest of the fingerboard, but in time it'll all even itself back out again. So let me figure out what kind of glue I'm going to use and we'll get that fixed. I ended up using some number 20 super glue to do this job, at which point I then sanded everything down to 1000 grit sandpaper and then buffed it all out to reveal this, a fretboard that's almost as good as new. At this point it's time to start installing the new frets onto the neck. Now this is a fairly complicated process, but it can be broken down into several fairly simple steps. Step 1, bend the fret wire. Step 2, cut the fret wire. Step 3, notch the fret wire. Now we just got to do that 19 more times. Step 4, clean up the notches. Step 5, press in the frets. I like to use just a little bit of super glue down inside the fret slot to help secure each fret into place, as well as putting a drop under each fret end so that they won't try to lift up in the future. I'll then smash each fret down using the tool that you see right here. It's a fret pressing caul that has a 10-inch radius in it that matches the one on the fretboard. It's chucked into my drill press and it makes quick work of this job. Looking good so far, but we gotta do something about these fret ends. Step 6, cut the overhang off. Step 7, bevel the fret ends. What step am I on? Step 8, level the frets. This is perhaps the most important part of any fret job. I first need to mask off the fretboard to prevent any damage from happening to that freshly buffed out rosewood, at which point I'll then use that same radius sanding block that I used to level the fretboard to level out the top of the frets. I'll take my time doing this until I'm sure that every single fret has a small flat spot sanded into the top of it. Step, whatever it is, I think it's 9, 8, crown the frets. I'll then use a special diamond coated file to reestablish a crown into each fret. These stainless steel frets make this job a lot more difficult because the metal is so dang hard, but the good news is that means that the frets won't wear out nearly as fast as the old nickel silver frets that came on the guitar from the factory. I'll then sand each fret to 1000 grit sandpaper before the next step. Step 10, or whatever we're on, buff out the frets. The entire job of installing and leveling the frets takes an entire workday to do, but just look at how good it all came out. This fretboard looks as good as new, and the finished guitar should play better than it did when it left the factory over 50 years ago. With the frets installed, the next thing that I need to do is to reset the neck angle. And what I mean by that is what I have to do is get this angle here readjusted so that it intersects with the new bridge that I'll be making for the guitar at the correct geometry. So let's get it on the vacuum clamp and do that now. This is without a doubt the most tedious part of doing any neck reset on a guitar. In order to change the angle of the neck joint, I have to pull strips of sandpaper between the heel of the neck and the body of the guitar over and over again until I remove enough material to start kicking the neck back by about 1 degree. This might not sound like a lot, but it takes a long time to see any results, as I only get 1 pull on each pass of the sandpaper before I have to reset everything and then do it all over again. It just plain sucks, but eventually I'm happy with the results. Something that I noticed while resetting the neck was that it was pretty gnarly feeling on the back, and I figured that now might be a good time to try to take off some of that grime that has built up over the years. Now I don't want to make it look new or anything, but it should at least feel smooth to the touch and be fast in the hand, and the buffing wheel did a really good job of doing this. At this point, I could get the neck glued back onto the guitar using some classic LMI instrument glue and some wood clamps. Now there's a lot more that went into making sure that dovetail joint was fitting tightly after we changed its geometry, but I don't want to bore you guys with too many details. With the neck back on the guitar, I could bring my attention to making the new bridge. In order to replace the old bridge, I'll be using this piece of Indian rosewood that you see right here. It's the same species as the original, but it's much thicker than the old one, which had been shaved down in the past by another luthier as a way of postponing the inevitable neck reset. I traced the shape of the original bridge onto the new blank with a scribe, and then filled in the scratch marks using some chalk to help make it more visible. From there, I roughed out the shape on my bandsaw to help save some time while sanding. I have a fairly wide blade on my saw, so I wasn't able to get into the curves of the shape very well though. I'll have to get those dialed in using my edge sander and then use this janky setup that you see right here. It's my rolling pin sander chucked into my drill press with 60 grit sandpaper zip tied to it. What? I'm sure OSHA would sign off on this. It took some doing, but I'm really happy with how it came out and it matches the original shape almost perfectly. I then used my CNC machine to cut a saddle slot into the bridge and then shave down the wings on my drum sander until it matched the contours of the original Gibson bridge. Okay, I'm really happy with how this bridge came out, and the last thing that I need to do before I can go about getting it polished and glued to the guitar is to somehow take these inlays either out of this bridge or to make new ones from scratch. And what I'm going to do is the hard way first. I'm going to try to actually cut these two pieces, or these three pieces of mother of pearl out of this bridge. I think it'd be kind of cool to use the original ones that were on it in the first place from the Gibson factory. So, and if that doesn't work, at that point I will make some new ones from scratch, but I have an idea on how I can make this work. The plan here is pretty straightforward. I'll use my New Concepts jeweler saw to cut out the inlays from the original bridge, wood and all. Once they've all been popped out, I can then chisel off that wood and then be left with just the pearl. Not bad, right? I'll then tack them onto the new bridge and trace their outlines so that I can cut pockets for them to go into. This is done using my Fordham tool, which is just basically a big ass Dremel tool with a router base attached to it. I'm using a 23 thousandths end mill to cut these pockets, which is super small, but it allows me to get these little Nike swooshes to fit nice and tight. Who knew that a shoe company would endorse a guitar? The pearl inlays are fairly delicate, so instead of hammering them into place, I used a clamp to press them into the pockets, and then used a bit of super glue to lock them into place. At which point I just needed to sand everything back to level with some 400 grit sandpaper. Looking pretty good if I do say so myself. Okay, I've been thinking about this a whole bunch, and I've been trying to figure out what the heck is going on with the holes that are in the soundboard of this guitar, because as you can see, for some reason or another, they were drilled at an incredibly steep angle. It wouldn't make sense that this angle was created from the string tension over the years, so my suspicion is that they were drilled that way in the first place. But upon digging around on the internet, I really can't find that this was something that Gibson did in the factory back in the day. So it's a bit of a mystery, and I don't know why it's like that, but I also know that it's not right, and I know that also I can do a better job if I just fill this hole and I re-drill all of the 6 holes myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this. I'm going to actually create a template, and I'm going to route out that whole section, and then I'm going to fill it with matching wood that both matches the soundboard as well as matches the bridge plate, and then I'm going to fill that in so that it's nice and flush and smooth, and then once I glue the bridge back on, I can re-drill all 6 of the bridge pin holes, and it'll be much better than it was from the factory. The added benefit of this is that we'll be able to fix the bridge plate. It's pretty blown out from the last time that the bridge pin holes were drilled. So I'll be able to fix that, and I'll actually be able to replace that section of the bridge plate with some solid maple instead of the plywood bridge plate that's there, which hopefully will help increase the sound of this guitar just a little bit better. So let's get after it. I ended up making the plug out of Adirondack spruce and maple, and then shaved it down to be the same exact thickness as the material that was removed from the soundboard. I then cut out that plug on my CNC machine so that it would fit the hole perfectly, and as you can see, it came out really nice. Now the process of hammering in the plug ended up getting pretty sketchy, and I screwed up the shot by getting in the way, but honestly, it was probably for the better.
That was sketchy. Oh my goodness.
But just look at how much better this bridge plate looks. Those ball ends should have much better purchase now. I just needed to level out the top of the plug so that I can get that new bridge glued to the soundboard. But before I can do that, I just need to buff out the bridge so that it'll look just like the original. I gotta say, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I guess the only thing left to do is to glue it on. After cleaning up all the glue from the bridge location, I could then reapply some LMI instrument glue to both the bridge and the soundboard, and then clamp it into place using a special vacuum clamp just for this job. This tool does an amazing job of making sure that there's a perfect clamping pressure on the joint, as well as no air pockets left behind underneath the bridge. With the bridge glued to the guitar top, I can now re-drill those holes for the bridge pins, but this time we're going to do something a little bit different because I'm going to be installing these, which are unslotted bone bridge pins. This guitar suffered from some serious issues with ill-fitting bridge pins, and I'm hoping that we can get them to fit a lot better this time and get more of that string energy to transfer into the soundboard. I'm going to let VoiceOver Chris explain to you why this is an important modification while I go about drilling these holes. The fitment of the bridge pins is an incredibly important thing to get right when trying to get the maximum amount of sound out of any guitar. With ill-fitting pins that are slotted like this guitar had from the factory, the strings aren't making good contact with the bridge plate, and a good amount of energy is lost in the process. By converting this guitar from slotted pins to unslotted ones, the ball end of the string is going to be fully locked into the soundboard so that it can transfer all of its energy into making sound. On top of that, I'm sliding the bridge itself so that the strings will have a much better break angle over the saddle. This increases the downward pressure that the strings exert on the saddle and can greatly improve the volume of the guitar. Now stick around to the end because I think that it's clear as day how much better this guitar sounds after this modification. We're getting close to stringing back up this guitar, but first I need to install the new tuning machines. These are a direct replacement of the originals and they went in with zero modification. They look amazing and feel so much better than the old worn out ones. At this point, I just needed to make a new saddle and nut for the guitar. Starting with the saddle, I opted to go with a solid cattle bone. After roughing it into shape, I then filed the compensation into it and then sanded it to 1000 grit sandpaper before buffing it out to a beautiful shine. I'll be using that same cattle bone material to make the new nut for this guitar, and the process is almost identical here, but of course I'll also need to cut the slots into the nut for the strings to go into. This is done using diamond coated files that are the same gauge as the strings that'll be going onto this guitar. After some more refining of its shape, I can then buff out the nut and then glue it onto the guitar, at which point I can finally put strings on. I do think it sounds a little bit more woody, so it definitely plays a lot better. Oh my goodness. Well, I think that wraps up this repair job. What do you guys think about it? Let me know down in the comment section down below. But for me personally, I'm really happy with how the guitar came out. I think that I struck a good balance between doing some restoration work on the guitar and updating it and making it feel and look a little bit better, but still making sure that it looks like it's a guitar that's over 50 years old. I think that Cam's going to be really excited about it when he opens up that case for the first time because he wasn't even aware that I was doing the neck reset job. That's going to be a bit of a surprise for him. That along with those new tuning machines and yeah, I think that it's going to be a pleasant surprise for him. So between the neck reset, the stainless steel frets, and then the repair that I did to the bridge plate, this guitar should be good to go for at least another 30 or so years before it maybe even thinks about needing some work in the future. So my hope is that when he comes to get this guitar, he's really happy with it and that maybe one day he'll pass it on to the next generation. Yeah, if you guys like this sort of video, I'll do more of them in the future. I don't do a whole lot of repair work, but folks do reach out to me all the time asking me if I can work on their old guitars. So if you guys like it, maybe I'll start saying yes to some people and I can make some more videos very much like this. But we'll see y'all in the next one. I hope you liked it.